different now that you know about creating context in the listening before what you could do 6 months ago?
I can like tango. I can turn down the lights. I can create a better emotional mood to enable the other person to be relaxed.
Okay. And to open in the listening? To be open to what he's going to listen at?
Yes.
Okay. What about this thing? Can you come?
For breakfast?
If you are a woman and a man tells you to go for lunch and you find a table like this, what would you do with your laptop?
I will store it.
I sit on the living.
Do you think it's a place for a laptop there?
No.
No. It's a place for what? For mood? What?
Conversation.
Conversation. Closeness. Romantic.
Listening.
Intimacy. What about this one?
Absolute romance.
Common place.
Absolute romance?
Okay.
Okay. What about creating new things?
Absolutely creating new things.
For innovation, for thinking outside the box.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, until this moment, we have seen also that in our listening, we can come from our cultural listening, or we can come from the generated listening. What happens when we listen from the cultural listening?
Very automatic, very mechanical.
Automatic,
We are in the
mechanic,
box.
Rigid. Stereotypes.
Stereotypes in the box,
Rigid.
More of the
Rigid,
same.
more of the same. Okay. What if you created generated listening?
Well,
Openness.
you have more possibilities.
More possibilities?
Openness. Openness.
Openness,
Out of
You,
the box.
Creativity.
you might have a better listener.
you might have a better listener for you,
Yes.
And you
and
can create other scenarios for the one that you are listening to.
okay, so you can create new scenarios. What kind of scenarios? How do you call those scenarios in the listening?
Just to build something inside the other that he's ready to, or put him in the readiness to create something different. Because you don't
Okay.
create for him, he creates for her. He creates a different way of looking at things just because you are listening. And he's
Okay.
hearing what he's listening to.
Okay. And how do you call in coaching this thing of creating in that generous listening the space for something to happen?
The,
Do you remember the word?
Uh,
What is context?
Context.
Context.
Mhm.
So creating context is coming in the listening.
Yes.
You get him to think, to see the world in a different way, and not just like this, but just to open his opportunities. If he's only listening this way, or he's only watching the world through this area, you create maybe an openness to just to let him see
Okay.
outside the regular things that he's watching right now.
Okay, we are getting to the end of this first conversation about listening. We have a lot more. But this is our first conversation about listening. What did you learn?
Not because this is something we already know, but we never practice.
We are more conscious now.
Yes, maybe your consciousness, because we already know this, but we never practice it. Because we are very aware of our own biography, of our own story.
Okay. Okay.
And we want to put the others into our own story without listening to their own story and then being gracious enough and with the humility to just say, well, I can listen to you from your own story and not from mine.
Okay.
Just to open different.
But it opens space to many misinterpretations when you're trying to listen to somebody out of what you have lived or experienced in your life.
Uh-huh.
So maybe you have to just
And
Yes.
it depends a lot of who we are. Because if we need a lot of recognition, we are all the time trying to reassure that we are right. We are not listening. We are, I insist, we are
How do you call that listening? Where you are listening?
self-police.
Okay.
Cultural.
Another way,
Cultural?
cultural listening. Yes. Already
Close.
listening.
Close listening.
And you're personalizing whatever you're hearing because you're making it personal. And not everything you hear is personal. That's why sometimes when you hear conversations with friends, for example, and somebody gets offended, and maybe you're thinking, it was not offensive at all. I don't understand why she was offended, but she was offended because she was listening from
Because
her own
her own
view.
story,
From
of
her
course.
point of view.
That we are bad listeners.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we have a lot to learn about listening.
Yes.
At least
And did you see the way it changes listening when we bring distinctions, like with the music?
Yes,
Mhm.
sure.
So that's the work that a coach does. The first thing is impacting the listening of the coachee. If you can impact that listening, the world will change for him
Yeah.
or her. Yeah? So any questions?
The way you put it, from my interpretation, the context not necessarily depends on the external environment.
Environment.
When the context is created with you and the coachee.
Yes.
No, you don't have to set up candles in the session. I mean, in a coaching session. I mean, the context is created by your listening.
Okay.
I beg to differ.
What could happen if you put candles and instead of coming from a listening of openness, you come from a listening of witches?
Of what? Of what?
Witches. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the candles don't
Yeah.
work.
Which is another thing.
We need something completely different.
Yes.
No, I think the physical context is very important. It also creates a mood. If these walls were painted in some other color,
Yeah, I
Right.
understand,
feel
but
different.
they are not they do not determine the
Yes.
the session or the coaching session.
I think that it
No, I
could,
disagree.
it
I
could
disagree
determine
too.
the
I
session
disagree.
if
I
the
disagree too.
context, for example, is with a lot of noise, with
course.
some
It's
a
not
lot
the
of
same.
interrupted telephone or something
It's not
like
the
that.
same, of course.
Maybe you don't need to create a spatial environment with candles and with everything, not so many elements, but you have to have an environment that is clean.
So the listening is more important.
Yes.
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 When we say, do you remember that we were talking about that there's nothing outside?
Yes.
So this probably is the answer. Your
Yeah.
question was very right. You can do whatever you want outside. Remember that the other one could interpret what he wants or she wants to interpret.
Yeah, because there are people who likes to speak out business on breakfast or lunch.
Yes.
And there are also people who doesn't like to speak at all about business in lunch or breakfast.
Yes.
That business is only speaking on the office and that's it. But there's people who brings the office to the home to the office, and they don't know how to separate.
Yeah.
So I think it's listening, but also I think to know or understand the person, the coachee or wherever, to who you are talking to.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Exactly. It's your work to listen to what is the best environment, what's the best context for your coaching.
Exactly.
And you can listen to what is said, and you can listen to what is not said. That's just generous listening.
And of course, every element tells you something, because the use of the elements of the environment, they are talking to you, or they are talking about the coachee, the words that he don't want to tell. He is hiding
Yes, remember that the listening,
the other conversation.
remember that the listening is always impacted by your own
Yes.
story and what you already know.